Hello, Boris Pravisham here. Welcome back to the Nidd Whitelist server. I worked a little bit more on the storage room in between episodes, so let's go up there first of all. To be honest, I don't really know why I didn't start there. I'm going to have to work out how to make this a little bit more easily navigable. I know I did say that I wanted it to be a bit sort of cramped and pokey, but I do need to find a good level in between, having to cram through that all the time. So storage in here, I've made it green. Don't know why. Apparently storage is green now. Some shelves, put boxes everywhere. I've decided on these big square windows. Not sure if I like that yet, but I've done it all the way up the side. You'll see that shortly. A little bit of empty space out here. I've got the air vent, and this does all seal, although unfortunately, as I showed in the last episode, it's linked with the room below, so they kind of work together. Over here, I wanted a second layer. I'm not sure if I like these catwalks, but I think they'll stay. Just a second layer to walk around. Not that I'll ever really use this. I just like the idea of being up here where you can actually reach the thing. I'm using these modded stairs, although I was looking, like there's two of them, and I really wanted ones that went down like that and then folded in that way. And no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get it to go that way. So I just don't think that there's a variation that will work that way. Be happily proved wrong, so I've just got them on the floor. I guess that's how it works. Like I said, out the back I've got those windows now. I'm kind of going up like that, and I've got these sort of lips out there, kind of break up the outline a little bit, especially when I colour things, and I'm hoping to break it up a little bit more as I go along, but yeah, I think I might stick with the three windows there, and there, although on this side it will only show off the stairwell. But I guess we'll see when I get there whether I like it or not. I have labelled things a bit more. This top area I haven't yet, but I've got the living quarters there, life support, and the conference room. I should be working on the conference room, but I'm going to start on the life support because I know what I'm doing with it. Basically, the conference room is what I should be building, but I'm going to build 2 rooms before I get there because I don't really know what I'm doing. So life support requires oxygen, med bay, and I'm going to have a reasonable, maybe 4 oxygen generators, so that I can quickly fill up hydrogen tanks and so forth that are connected via other ships and ones that are built in there. So this station needs to be able to equip the ships that it builds as well. I've got this in here just for ease of access. Of course I pressed the wrong button. Today I thought, this is not really answering questions today. I read some questions and it kind of spurred me on to, wow, that's loud. You probably heard the echo from my own headset. Yeah, reading some of the questions sort of inspired me to talk about this. In fact, I am kind of breaking one of my rules, which is, and I break it all of the time, but intentionally so today, which is not to talk about YouTubing whilst YouTubing. We'll see if this works out like this. Might be a little bit kind of grid-like. But today, instead, I'm going to go right back and talk about why I'm doing it. And this kind of follows on from the last episode, where I talked a bit about not taking this seriously. So I'll talk about why, I guess. I have always had these creative projects that I've done from a very early age. In fact, the first one that I can remember, it went from the age of 8 till the age of 12 or 13. I'll just grab some more. I don't know why I flew in here. There's a cargo container out there. I wrote a story. You know the little exercise books that you get in school? I'm assuming everyone had them. A5 size. I used to have my storybook, and I would write stories just constantly whenever because I found school really easy, particularly in primary school. That coloured, didn't it? I didn't tell you to colour, but you did. Yeah, so I always had lots of spare time. So finish your work and then just sit around while I wait for everyone else to finish. So I would spend that time, like the true nerd I was, writing in my storybook. This sounds bad, but I'm going to have to weld those up, otherwise I won't be able to get back into them. And I just blocked off. Oh, no, it's alright. So what do I need to do? I need to go in here. They started off with just random stories to begin with, but over time I developed this one story. I'll need 10 of these. Over time it developed into one story that I just worked on, and it sounds kind of cliched and terrible when I say what it was about, but at the time I thought it was a brilliant. I just put that in the wrong spot. I guess I'm taking them out. We'll weld these up. I can get to these below. I can place them all. It sounds cliched and terrible, but the story was essentially a kid around about the same age as I was that was trapped in a dream, and every time he woke up he was in another dream, which sounds terrible. However, it wasn't really about the plot. I remember, this is 8 to 13-year-old me. It was terrible, but yeah, it wasn't really about the plot, because it doesn't matter what happens in a dream. Anything can happen, and that was the point, is that it allowed me to write just nonsense stories, just extremely stupid, silly, sometimes puerile, teenage boy. But I really just enjoyed the silliness of it. I remember one of them, this is probably the most puerile, terrible one. Did I not make 10? That's 10, right? 3 by 3 plus 1. That's 10. Yeah, probably one of the most silly ones was when he was tiny. My main character was tiny, and he was trapped in a toilet. And I thought it was a hilarious joke. In fact, I probably would still make this joke today. But it was a 96-page exercise book. I wrote the first 2 pages with the actual story, where he was trapped in this, I think I need construction components, he was trapped in this massive toilet when a giant sits down on it. All he can see is a massive crack above him, and then lets out an extremely loud fart. And the joke was that for the rest of the 94 pages in that exercise book, it was just this onomatopoeic stream of consciousness of me creating the sound of the fart in letters. 94 pages of it. Took me ages, but I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was the funniest thing that could possibly have existed. That kind of shows the maturity and level of creativity that has not left me. that I still revel in. Even then, I was doing these little silly creative ventures. I don't really know what I need, so I looked at it, but I didn't pay attention, of course. So I need construction components, and I just put them away. Yeah, and I've never, well, I don't know if grown out of it is the right word. I've never stopped with little creative side projects. I've always had something on the go. Or actually, that's not true. Every now and then I don't have something on the go, and I've always been unhappy when that's been the case. Even if my life is not going well in the real world, as long as I've got some silly thing to get away to, like this, it's always been fine. So yeah, it started off with writing silly stories. As I progressed through school, in the high school. It turned into plays, and in fact, let me just do this before I forget what I was doing. I need 9 oxygen tanks. Where would they hide oxygen? There we go. The school that I was in, it was a public state school, of course, but they offered this system where if you did well, there were classes for those who did well in certain subjects and classes for those who didn't. Like, it was tiered. There were 5 tiers of classes. I don't know if they still do that, but that's what they did at the time. It allowed me, because I was always in the top, nerd, always in the top class, the Extension Plus, I think it was called. It meant that I got to do things like create a short film with terrible camcorders and very little editing. So combine that with the acting of a teenager, and it was horrible, but at the time, we all kind of sat around. We were divided up into groups, and we all sat around and tried to come up with a story. And I was like, well, I've got books and books of this story that I've not named. We might as well use it if no one else comes up with any other ideas. And of course they didn't. So I ended up reading back through the books that I had left, because I didn't really keep them. In fact, I think I've got half of one left now. I don't know where the rest have gone. And that one's not very good either. I don't know if I kept it. It was not one of my best efforts. But yeah, I went through all the books that I had left, and I turned it into a kind of best of. So I had this weird thing, and later on I turned it into a play as well, this nonsense story. And it got better. Like, I gave a bad example of the whole fart thing. There were better things than that. Not much, but slightly. I don't know if many other kids would have done that. Written a story, turned it into a film and a play. But that's what I did. I hated... we got to do a lot of those kind of creative things through the English classes, the extension English classes, which was great fun. I feel sorry for everyone else who had to sit in class and actually do work, but we got to do this kind of thing. Funnily enough, I hated drama. I really, mostly because they made me perform. I don't like performing. I am happy to be in front of people, do public speaking. I'm happy to be on stage as long as I'm myself. I don't have to pretend to be someone else. If I do, then I just find it a horribly demeaning experience, and I don't like it. And that's what drama made me. So I hated drama. I dropped it after a year. But I got to do all of the other side of things, the writing behind the silliness in English, and I must have been at least a dozen plays I did in 5 years. Like a couple not even for class. They were just, school plays that I wrote. Some were serious, by the way. Like I one of the ones that we did for like a general school play was to rewrite a Shakespearean play for a modern audience, and I did Othello. So there were higher brow attempts. I wasn't very good at it. I preferred the silly comedy kind of stuff. Am I able to get stuff out of here yet? Why am I making stuff? Oh, they're probably going into various other cargo containers they shouldn't. Like in here. I don't want that. These things don't have bulletproof glass. They don't have girders either. The assemblers are just spitting them out anywhere. So these things could be anywhere. Of course they're in the disassembler. That's exactly where I want them to be. One of the plays that I liked the most was a parody of the 60 Minutes. 60 Minutes, the American news and current affairs, the investigative journalism that's terrible. Yeah, I did one called 40 Minutes Plus Ads, and I liked it just for the name. I did the entire thing for the name, but we did like cutaway segments. So we'd film the little segment, like the reporter in the field, and then go back to the studio, which was live, and stuff like that. I don't know how any of this was my schooling. But yeah, I did all that, and then this is all a story for another time, but once I left school, I didn't go straight into university. I was picked up for a job straight away, like a full-time job with full-time study on the side, and it really didn't work out. All the story for another time, but that kind of just dented everything, and I didn't really do much creatively until well, actually it stopped what I was doing, but then I came back and oops, did I drop something, or is it all the way down? It's probably down on the floor by now. I don't know if I want this to all be steel plates, and I also don't know if I want there to be a wall on that stairwell. But yeah, anyway, I found the internet, and I was able to go on the internet after years of it being too slow, and yeah, it just opened up this huge new world of possibilities, of things that could be done. And I remember there was I won't say the name of it, but there was a satirical, like news-based, actually, I don't want that there. No, don't do that. News-based website that did, like The Onion, that kind of thing, but Australian news. And I applied there. I sent them, I thought, I'll send them a thing, see if they want me. What wasn't a particularly big website, mind you, and it turned out that they took me based on the stupid thing that I'd written, and over time, I ended up writing probably hundreds of articles for this website, and general blog posts, that kind of thing. But that eventually petered out and the website closed down, not because of me, I should say. This all kind of overlaps, but that turned into hosting, being on a couple of podcasts, and then I thought I could maybe give that a try, and I started setting one up, and then there was an ad for a writer's position for a BBC radio panel show, and they were taking people from all around the world to write for this. And I managed to, I was there for a couple of series, paid pretty much nothing because it was radio, and I was not even credited apart from the last 2 episodes that I did. I did 12 episodes in total. It was just the jokes, the little jokes that the host would say. The host doesn't come up with that stuff. It's all pre-written. And so I would submit, maybe 20 jokes an episode, and 3 would get through the edit or the script edit or the final edit. I'm sitting here trying to remember what I was going to do. That's right, window. So we'll go 2 by 3 and see what that looks like. I wasn't terribly good at that. I'm not good enough to make a living out of any of that kind of thing, but it was fun while it lasted. But they changed the rules for this particular show, and they wanted all the writers to be in the one room. And for what was essentially a hobby that gave me a few quid on the side, it wasn't worth, moving entire countries just to go do that. So I ended up, I tried to find another show, and but it didn't really work out. And this all overlaps. These aren't mutually exclusive. I'm thinking I should probably make that the other way around. For once I chose the right window and then decided I didn't like it after all. Do you think that'll seal? I think that'll seal. I don't like the look of that. How that does that thing. You know what? I could probably go through and remove these all for these half armor blocks. It's a bit straight, but I think that'll be alright. We'll run with that for now. I tried doing actual work for an actual media organization, I did a little bit for a local radio station as well, but they were mostly just seen as hobbies. I still did all the other creative stuff on the side, and by this time I had this fully fledged podcast running. Wasn't hosted by me. I had a friend who's sadly not with us anymore. I did talk about him briefly at the end of one other video. But yeah, he hosted it all and was brilliant at it. And it got fairly popular off the back of, how funny he was. And I really enjoyed that because I wrote everything. I organized the show, basically. Did every job other than actually being on the show. Which is... It was not easy. Scheduling especially. If you try and get... if you're running a weekly show and you're trying to get people from all over the world, there's 3 people that were regulars and could do a regular time each week, but then 2 guests that I had to find every week, and they had to be there without fail. And I think I got through 3 years with only maybe 4 episodes where I didn't have the full 5 people. That podcast went well, so I decided to kind of create my own more niche one, which I did host. It wasn't as popular. It was a little bit more, a little weirder. But I ran them side by side, so I was doing these 2 shows a week. And then about halfway through that, I decided to give gaming a go on YouTube. In fact, it was 3 days after the release of Minecraft, the full release of Minecraft. I'd been playing it through the beta, and when it was fully released and I saw a couple of other people were doing these Minecraft kind of videos, and I thought, I'll give this a shot. And I kind of made one Minecraft video every 3 or so weeks. Just kind of very much show and tell, here's the thing I did. And that was it. That was the entire episode. They went for between 10 and an hour, 10 minutes and an hour. It was, but that slowly grew. And because, I think it was Zay Frank that came up with this, which is the only way to be successful at YouTube is to have started in 2006. Although with gaming that applies with 2010, which was Minecraft, which kind of kicked this whole thing off. Yeah, and just basically the fact that I got into it early meant that I had just under 10,000 subscribers by the end of it. And because of that, I was getting decent pocket money. It was a very small amount still, because it's YouTube. But it was enough for me, particularly as someone who has not, never earned any decent money. It was enough for me to live on, because I can live on basically nothing a week. Not enough for me to live on, enough for me to think this is worth giving a shot. And it slowly turned into me doing 2 podcasts, one of which I hosted. Actually, the one I was hosting, I took back to once a fortnight rather than weekly, because it was just not possible. So, 1 podcast every 2 weeks, 1 podcast every week, which took a lot of work on, although by this stage I had a formula down, and a couple of videos, of gaming videos, usually 2 Minecraft and then every now and then 1 in another game, almost all single player. And because I was just doing so much with full-time work for most of it as well, I really don't know how I did it, but it was really fun. Until it wasn't. Until I started to take it more seriously. Because I started to take it more seriously, the fun went out of it, particularly firstly with the podcasts, because then it stopped being about booking the kind of people that I like, and then I started worrying about what the viewers liked, which guests got the most listeners, and then trying to book them as well, going for higher status guests, people that were kind of minor celebrities, that kind of thing. I started going for them. I also, just another thing to add in, I started another little kind of, actually it wasn't really a podcast, it was a live webcam kind of show with maybe 4 or 5 people live, and I started using my real name. I kind of separated it off, had my 2 different personas, in like online personas. Yeah, and I started using my real name, and I appeared on webcam hosting the show. That lasted about a year. Didn't, like, when I say a year, it wasn't every week. It was little bits and pieces here and there. Met some good people like that, and I got to do a show with people that I knew, but it was mostly an experiment. I'm sorry if I think there may be 1 or 2 people from that era that have followed onto this channel that know me from then, and I'm sorry if you're listening to hear that it was kind of all an experiment from me. I kind of used them to work out whether I could use my real name, because I was very paranoid, and the answer was resoundingly no, when it ended up making it firstly through my family, and having to answer questions at like Christmas gatherings about a particular joke that I made, and it made me very, I guess, unable to make those jokes and say certain things when you know that real people that you're going to have to meet in real life are going to question you and know that you've said those things. And then, question why you didn't turn up at a particular gathering because you were recording this silly internet show. That kind of thing. And the final straw came when it ended up with my boss. He commented on the fact that he found this, and that's when I pulled the plug on everything and had to leave that behind. So I tried that in the meantime as well. That was not at all successful. Anyway, back to the gaming channel. Because that had started to get a fair number of views, I'd started to get a bit of pocket money off of it, and again, like what happened with the podcast, I started to take it seriously. I changed everything about the way that I was projecting myself on. Like, you'll notice that I particularly don't do things that are required to, I guess, make it on YouTube. There are things that I really don't like having to, and I don't blame anyone for doing this, because this is the kind of thing that you need to do if you are to achieve any kind of sustained success, if you measure success in numbers on YouTube. Things like having to hold your video hostage, saying things like comment and subscribe. People don't ask you, like YouTubers don't ask you to like their video because they want the attention. It's because of Google's search algorithms. It's SEO. The more likes you get on the video, the higher up it appears. It's one of the factors anyway. Higher up it appears in search, that kind of thing. Having to name your videos these ridiculously long and silly names just to, get by with the system. Try and garner as many views from random hits, that kind of thing. I started to do all of that and care about appearance and branding, and it stopped being me. And that's when it stopped being this creative, fun thing that I did on the side as a hobby to escape the real world. And that's when it stopped being fun. And I basically just had to stop doing it. When my podcast, the big one that was doing really well, probably the best thing that I've ever produced, probably ever will produce. I'm not going to tell you much about it in case one day I want to revive it. When that stopped being fun as well, when the work started to feel like actual work, and then in came the people problems that come with even the most minor, like I'm talking about all of this like it's some, like it's kind of show busy and that kind of thing, when it's not. It's some guy recording, like pretending to be that. But yeah, when it came to managing the people and the arguments that came from it, which I just didn't want any part in, so I usually just ignored it. And then it got worse, of course. It's still something I have trouble with. Yeah, when it came to managing all of that and holding people together, it really didn't work. And it was actually my friend, I'll call him by his real name's Gary, No one will be able to find him from that. Yeah, it was Gary that kind of pulled the plug on me and said, this is not, like, the show's not working anymore, and it's obviously not having a good effect on you. So, like, either you have to change this, or I'm not going to be on the show anymore. And that coming from probably the best friend I'd ever had, it didn't go down well, and I ended up just leaving in a huff. And it wasn't him, it was everything else that was kind of happening at the same time. And so everything was closed down, that entire persona. It wasn't, like, I have to reiterate, it wasn't him and that one single statement. It wasn't that petty. There was a whole bunch of other things. I shouldn't have done it, but it was a confounding factor of many different things. And I just found myself no longer with any YouTube channels, anything like that. It all just went. I barely have any archives of any of it. I have little bits and pieces. I have like plenty of scripts and like jokes that were left over, all that kind of stuff. It all kind of, this is the end of 2013 by now that this all happened. And yeah, it all shut down really quickly. Basically, it was confounded with a change in everything in my life at that stage. It wasn't just the, online silliness that I was doing. It was everything in my life, from job to relationships. Everything all at once changed. And it only took maybe 4 or 5 months until I was feeling at not having that creative outlet. I changed my life in order to make it better, but I'd left out the one thing that I kind of always needed. And so actually, it was when I was doing the podcast, I met a professor from James Cook University. He was a guest on the show. I met this professor. I won't tell you who he is because then you could look him up. But he was trying to get off the ground this YouTube series of educational videos. Fun little comedic, fairly silly, but trying to teach particularly younger people these kind of scientific concepts and that kind of thing. And we got talking about it, and he ended up wanting to hire me to do the writing and not the writing. He basically gave me what needed to be in it, all of the information that needed to be in it. And, you've actually got to be in an inventory for that to work. Yeah, and I would turn that and add little, silly jokes and that kind of thing, and then I would voice it and send the voice to the animator, who would then animate it all into something watchable. And I really enjoyed doing that. I did 3 of none of these ever got produced. The animator ended up not being able to do it, and before he could find someone else, he decided that wasn't he wanted to try doing things a bit different. Like his teaching life at uni kind of prohibited him from participating in this a bit. I could close the door. I was wondering why. Is this going to turn green? It is. Perfect. Now oxygen. Can't believe that worked out so easily. Even take my helmet off. We need some lights in here. I think they'll be blue. So he had this sort of hiccup where it was going to take him maybe 6 months to get back, but I was just going to wait for him. But then I had my little, life crisis and disappeared. So that never happened, but I had so much fun writing with him and doing these little educational things that when I started to, I was looking for a creative thing, and I thought, I'm going to go back into gaming, because I'd kind of gotten into gaming a little bit, and I discovered Space Engineers and thought this would be alright. Got my helmet on. Oh, is the passageway. The passageway's not airtight, it seems. I'm assuming. Helmet's back off and I'm not dying? Okay. Yeah, I decided I'll probably go back and do some gaming videos, and I'd planned to record a whole bunch and do it differently. I was going to make sure that it was me, basically what I'm doing here. So I'm glad that worked out. I managed to rearrange things so that I wasn't creating videos where I wasn't me, where I was kind of acting. I'm not sure I like that hard edge, but I don't think there's going to be a way. I think it's better than all the alternatives. Yeah, I decided to do that. However, the way things were at the time in my life, I thought I'd give it a few months and I'd pre-record a whole bunch of things and make sure that I liked what I was doing. Apparently that still works. We better close that up, I guess. Why are you not venting? Oh, not complaining. Is that right? Yeah. I don't know how I'm going to fill that. There's not a block shaped like that, so I might replace that. I'd missed doing these little educational things so much that when I found Space Engineers and I found this little, like, I come up with the crank from scratch in response to not having any kind of way to move in the way that a piston does in-game now. And I thought, I'll make a video, I'll use some of the things that I learned. However, I did it in one day. The scripts for each of the 3 episodes that I'd written, they went for... it took a good... even up to a week to get them right. Not a full week, but in bits and pieces. And yeah, so I did this piston tutorial literally one Sunday afternoon, really quickly, all off the cuff. I worked it out in my head as I went, and I put it up on YouTube with all the new accounts that I kind of reserved, waiting for everything that was to come, and put up this piston tutorial, thinking no one's ever going to watch this. Like, it'll just be this little thing that I did for myself because it was fun. And then when I start recording properly, I'll maybe take it down or something, I don't know. But within, like, even a few, I think it was within 36 hours, like, the developers, like Keen, were reposting it, and Marek had added me on Steam, and the other bigger YouTubers that I'd not even paid attention to because I'd not been watching any YouTube to do with Space Engineers, they were talking to me as well, and it kind of just blew up in a way that I wasn't expecting. And it's relative, of course. I'll have to fiddle with each one individually, because that's maybe a little bit blue, maybe a little bit lighter would be nice. That's roughly what I'm going for, though. Yeah, I wasn't expecting it, and then I kind of felt a bit pressured to continue making things like that, even though that was just a one-off fun thing that I did, and within a few months I had caught myself doing exactly the same thing as I was doing before. I was trying to make things that were popular, but that I didn't enjoy, and I had so many series that I never completed because I wasn't enjoying recording them. And what I liked most were things like Weekend Madness, which was a bunch of strangers all in game, just playing a silly mini-game in Space Engineers, and a lot of them didn't work, which is why I'm still not really doing it. A lot of them didn't work because, just taking random strangers off the internet, and then trying to make a YouTube video, you can see where that goes wrong. But the ones that did go right, I saw a lot of promise in it, and as something that I did want to do, to focus more on the silliness and, the nonsense from those stories that I wrote as a kid. That's what I wanted to do, to just, and from time to time just talk like this and just enjoy myself a bit more, make it more, less about trying to attract people to watch it and more just a hobby, an outlet, and if people came along, then great. Drunk Spider-Man is the oldest of all the Nidd tubers in the Nidd. He's one of the oldest members because I met him in one of those Weekend Madnesses, and he was one of the people that kind of convinced me to keep going along that line because of the stuff that came out of his mouth. Yeah, so I kept going in that direction, and that's how I got to where I am now with the creative side of things, and that's what I want to keep trying to do. I want to not just do YouTube gaming. I want to stay within gaming. I want to focus more on the Nidd and making that, because I think that's a bit more of a unique and fun idea, to get something like that to be as good as it possibly can be, and then keep this as my fun creative outlet for whenever that doesn't go as planned. So I'm hoping to keep that going, doing things like that. Right now, this is something that I might talk about more in future. I'm going to actually look at this from outside. That's the one perspective I've not seen. I've kind of finished what I want to do for the moment. Need a helmet. I want there to be kind of a nice blue glow. I think I might have to put another light facing more towards the window so that it glows a bit more like that orange. The green doesn't as much, but see how it's got the different colours up the side? I want there to be a range of different colours all the way up. I think that turned out alright, though. Yeah, this is something that I might talk more in depth about, but my money situation is really not great. I've got enough for food and to pay the rent, but yeah, it's not great. So I can't really get new games, but I'm hoping to try and get some new series out of the games that I have, with new people, do some more solo stuff, that kind of thing. And also to do more things with the Nidd as well, and make them not about me, make them not about making series for me, but I want to do more things that kind of highlight the community, make videos about the people, the silly fun stuff that happens. That stuff will be less polished, less predictable, but I want to do a bit more of that kind of stuff. Anyway, I've been talking for far too long, and I'm just rambling at this point. So thank you for listening to this. I kind of like how that oxygen room turned out. I think that worked out all right. So I'm happy with that. Another room down. Only maybe 5 or 6 to go. We'll just keep plodding along with this. There was going to be some group episodes for the next week or two, but this is when Space Engineers broke, and the physics problems with Havoc and all that kind of stuff. When that happened is when we were going to record. So we didn't do that. So we're down on the group episodes for a week or two. But yeah, I'll try and intersperse it with some other, maybe try and intersperse it with some other things, so people that don't like these kind of episodes, they've got something to watch. I do try and make it as clear as possible in my descriptions, the sort of episode that it is, so that you can pick and choose. At no point should you feel like you have to watch every single episode in order of this stuff. Just watch the stuff that you will like. Anyway, thank you for listening again, and goodbye.